Oh my goodness, this is it. You have to show them, this is it. Yahweh, the name of God.
For centuries, the Temple Mount has stood at the very heart of faith, power, and mystery. It is one of the most sacred and contested places on earth, holy to Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. Millions travel from across the world just to stand on its ancient stones, never knowing what lies buried beneath their feet. But now, for the first time in history, scientists and archaeologists have uncovered something beneath the Temple Mount that is sending shockwaves across the globe. What they found isn't just a relic, it isn't just another artifact. It is something so extraordinary that it could rewrite everything we thought we knew about religion, history, and the origins of Jerusalem itself. Beneath the surface lay hidden chambers, untouched for nearly 3,000 years, forgotten shrines that once defied kings and reformers. Objects so mysterious that even experts struggle to explain them. The findings have left scholars speechless, divided religious leaders, and forced the world to ask a difficult question. What does this mean for the faiths that all trace their roots back to this sacred mountain? This is more than just an archaeological dig, it's history itself breaking its silence. The astonishing discovery beneath the Temple Mount. For generations, the Temple Mount has stood as a timeless symbol of power, devotion, and human history. But now, deep behind its ancient stones, scientists have revealed a secret that has left even seasoned archaeologists in disbelief. Using state-of-the-art technology, researchers detected sealed chambers hidden beneath the mount, untouched for almost 2,800 years. Inside were traces of a forgotten world, perfectly preserved, waiting to be rediscovered. These rooms, silent since around 700 BCE, had remained locked away in darkness, holding secrets no one ever imagined. And what makes this so remarkable isn't just their age or condition, it's where they were found, directly beneath one of the holiest places on earth, a site that has seen empires rise and fall, heard the prayers of prophets and kings, and witnessed rituals of deep spiritual meaning. For centuries, people honored what was above, never realizing what lay hidden below. Thanks to cutting-edge ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive tools, experts have now revealed not just one, but an entire network of chambers beneath Jerusalem's old city. A hidden labyrinth, preserved in silence, offering us a rare glimpse into a forgotten chapter of human history. And with this discovery, the story of the Temple Mount, and perhaps the story of faith itself, may never be seen the same way again. Imagine uncovering a time capsule sealed away for thousands of years, untouched by looters, untouched by wars, and untouched by the passage of time. That's exactly what researchers have found. These hidden chambers were like a snapshot of a forgotten world, frozen in stone long before the Romans rose to power and destroyed the Second Temple. Inside, archaeologists discovered altars, oil presses, standing stones, and other artifacts that revealed how ancient people wove their faith and rituals into everyday life. What's truly astonishing, though, is how little we actually knew about this chapter of Jerusalem's past. For centuries, the Temple Mount has been remembered mainly as the site of Solomon's Temple and the tragic destruction of the Second Temple by the Romans. Historians have studied its downfall in detail, yet no one imagined that something so vital, so well preserved, was hidden directly beneath it, protected from the chaos that came after. This discovery is already forcing us to question everything we thought we knew about the Temple Mount. These chambers aren't just ancient relics from a forgotten time, they are missing pieces of a much larger puzzle, one that could rewrite the story of Jerusalem's past. The artifacts inside don't just reveal rituals. They give us a glimpse into the people who lived by them, into the community that once thrived in the shadow of one of the world's most sacred sites. And yet, as researchers begin to piece together their purpose, the discoveries leave scholars, archaeologists, and religious leaders with more questions than answers. What do these hidden rooms reveal about spiritual life in ancient Jerusalem? What role did they play in the Temple Mount's long and sacred history? And perhaps the most mysterious question of all, why were they sealed away for so long? This is no ordinary archaeological find. It is a revelation, one that uncovers a chapter of history we were never meant to see, and even now, the world is still grappling with what these chambers truly mean. The implications could change everything we know about Jerusalem's holy past. But what exactly did these rooms reveal? What was hidden inside that could shake the very foundations of the Temple Mount's history? What researchers uncovered is far more than a collection of artifacts. It may hold clues that could transform the way we understand the writing of the Bible itself. So don't go anywhere, because what lies inside these chambers is far more important than anyone ever imagined. A shrine frozen in time for 2,800 years. Every object, every tool, every trace of history was still exactly where it had been left, as if the people who once worshipped there had simply stepped away and never returned. That's what researchers uncovered beneath the Temple Mount. This wasn't just a ruin. It was a perfectly preserved time capsule from the 8th century BCE, offering us a glimpse into a past we thought was lost forever. The shrine itself was made up of 8 rooms, each one a window into worship practices from nearly 3,000 years ago. Inside, archaeologists found ritual tools, oil presses, wine basins, standing stones, and more, all arranged with striking care. The altar slabs still carried faint traces of oils and incense, linking us directly to the sacred ceremonies performed by Jerusalem's ancient inhabitants. And here's the most astonishing part. Nothing had been disturbed. Not by looters, not by wars, not by the fall of empires, and not even by the chaos of centuries. It was as if this shrine had been deliberately hidden away, sealed beneath the earth, and left untouched ever since. But what makes it even stranger is where it was found. This wasn't some forgotten corner far from the Sacred Heart of Jerusalem. It was directly beneath the Temple Mount, just steps away from where Solomon's great temple once stood. This suggests something remarkable. The shrine was not separate from the life of the temple above, but rather a parallel space of worship. For centuries, historians believed that after Solomon's temple was built, all religious practice in Jerusalem was centralized there. But this discovery challenges that idea entirely. It reveals that worship in ancient Jerusalem wasn't confined to the grandeur of the main temple. Smaller, more intimate shrines existed beneath the surface, woven into the daily lives of ordinary people. And rather than being abandoned or destroyed, this one appears to have been intentionally sealed during a period of religious reform, locked away, preserved, and forgotten for thousands of years. This reform wasn't about destroying the old ways, but about silencing them. The shrines weren't smashed or torn down, they were sealed, left empty, and forgotten. And because of that, everything inside remained untouched, as if time itself had chosen to guard this secret. What makes this discovery so remarkable isn't only that the rooms were preserved, but what they reveal about life in ancient Jerusalem. It wasn't just about the grandeur of the great temple. Alongside the main rituals, there was an entire world of practices, traditions, and beliefs happening at the edges. This wasn't some side project. It was a thriving part of the city's spiritual life. Jerusalem's faith was far more diverse and layered than we ever imagined. And now, as archaeologists carefully study the shrine, new questions arise. How were these rooms sealed so perfectly? Why were they preserved instead of destroyed? And why, despite the push to centralize worship, were these spaces left intact? These questions have the power to reshape how we understand the religious history of Jerusalem, and even how the world views the Temple Mount itself. So what exactly was hidden in these rooms? What secrets do the ritual tools, basins, and standing stones hold? Each artifact is a clue, forcing us to reconsider what we thought we knew about ancient worship. A challenge to biblical history. The discovery of this secret shrine beneath the Temple Mount shakes the foundations of biblical history itself. For centuries, scholars and religious leaders have agreed on one thing. When King Hezekiah reformed worship in ancient Judah, he eliminated rival shrines and centralized all religious life at the temple. But this 2,800-year-old shrine, preserved in perfect condition, tells a very different story. It reveals that a hidden religious life continued to flourish alongside public worship at Solomon's temple. Far from being completely erased, these localized practices survived, even after Hezekiah's reforms. The fact that the shrine was carefully sealed, rather than destroyed, suggests that Hezekiah's reforms may not have been as absolute as the biblical account implies. Perhaps he wasn't eradicating rival shrines, but pushing them underground, literally. These ceremonies continued quietly, out of sight, for thousands of years, and with its altars, oil presses, and ritual tools still in place, the shrine shows us that local private worship wasn't strange or forbidden. It was an essential part of daily life in ancient Jerusalem. But this discovery leaves us with questions that cut to the core of biblical history. If Hezekiah truly intended to make the temple the sole center of worship, why was this shrine preserved instead of destroyed? Why was it hidden instead of dismantled? Could it mean that religious life in Judah was more flexible, more varied, and more complex than the written accounts suggest? The answers may forever change how we understand one of the most sacred places on earth. This discovery is forcing scholars to take a fresh look at the ancient world. The story of how kings, priests, and local communities shaped worship and how religious power worked in Jerusalem is no longer as clear-cut as we once believed. For centuries, the biblical accounts of King Hezekiah's reforms were seen as the final word on Jerusalem's religious history. But now, those stories are being challenged. After all, if the reforms truly wiped out every other form of worship, how can this shrine, preserved for nearly 3,000 years, still exist beneath the Temple Mount? The implications are enormous. Tradition tells us that Hezekiah's reforms ended all competing practices, centralizing everything in the temple. But this evidence points to something much more complex. What we see is a divided spiritual landscape, official temple worship above and thriving local traditions hidden just below. This wasn't simply one religion overpowering another. Different forms of worship existed side by side, sometimes openly, sometimes in secret, but always present. And that raises a much bigger question. What else has been left in the shadows of history? This hidden shrine may only be the beginning. It suggests that Jerusalem's religious history is far more layered than we imagined, buried beneath centuries of myth, memory, and power struggles. For scholars, this complicates everything. The once straightforward story of Hezekiah's reforms, temple worship, and the destruction of rival shrines is unraveling. The history we thought we knew is crumbling, and in its place, a new and more complicated story is emerging. But the real questions are only beginning. Who were the people who worshipped here? What rituals did they practice? How did they manage to keep this sacred space hidden for so long? And most importantly, what does this tell us about the relationship between faith, power, and politics in a city where all three were inseparably linked? So what comes next? What other secrets might still lie buried beneath Jerusalem? As we dig deeper into this lost chapter of history, the artifacts uncovered inside the shrine could change everything we thought we knew about the ancient world and about the holy city itself. Evidence of a hidden religious world. When archaeologists uncovered the secret shrine beneath the Temple Mount, they didn't just find stones and dust. They found a living piece of history, preserved for nearly 2,800 years. What shocked researchers the most was that this shrine wasn't filled with grand monuments or golden treasures. Instead, it held everyday ritual objects, simple items that told the story of ordinary worship, a story that had remained hidden for centuries. Inside the sealed chambers, they discovered cooking pots, loom weights, scarabs, and seals. At first glance, these might seem like everyday household objects, but in this context, they were deeply tied to sacred life, used in rituals, offerings, and ceremonies once thought to have ended with King Hezekiah's reforms. Take the loom weights, for example. These weren't just for weaving clothing. Evidence suggests they may have been used to create sacred garments for priests, or even altar cloths for temple ceremonies. This hints at something remarkable, that women or temple workers could have played an important role in preparing holy items, challenging the long-standing belief that worship at the temple was a strictly male domain. Even more surprising were the scarabs, tiny amulets linked to Egyptian religious traditions. Their presence here shows that ancient Judah wasn't isolated, but connected to neighboring cultures. The people who worshipped in this shrine were part of a wider spiritual world where symbols, rituals, and beliefs crossed borders. These scarabs weren't just trinkets. They were protective charms, perhaps even tools for divination, tying this hidden space to a broader religious network. And then came the most significant link of all, the connection to the First Temple period. Seals and inscribed pottery tied directly to the era of Solomon's temple were found here, proving that this hidden shrine was not separate from Judah's official religion, but an integral part of it. It wasn't a fringe practice. It was part of a structured religious society that paralleled and perhaps even complemented the worship happening above. These artifacts do more than show us what one small group believed. They reveal how ordinary people participated in sacred life, how rituals blended with daily routines, and how faith endured even when history tried to erase it. The cooking pots, incense shovels, and ritual tools preserved here give us an unfiltered glimpse into the spiritual heartbeat of ancient Jerusalem. And now, everything changes. This discovery doesn't just reshape our understanding of daily life in Jerusalem, it challenges centuries of belief about Judah's religious history. For generations, historians and biblical scholars taught that Hezekiah's reforms wiped out all rival shrines, centralizing worship solely at the temple. But this evidence tells a different story. Worship didn't end. It simply went underground. Faith didn't disappear. It adapted, hidden away in secret spaces, carried forward quietly by the people who refused to let it die. So the question remains, what does this mean for our understanding of Judah's past? These objects force us to rethink everything we thought we knew about how people lived out their faith. This hidden shrine wasn't just a minor site on the edges of society. It was a fully functioning religious center. The ritual tools and sacred items found inside prove how deeply the community was tied to its beliefs, even while the temple above tried to centralize worship. What it reveals is a secret religious world, one that continued to exist in silence, even as powerful kings tried to shut it down with sweeping reforms. And now that the initial shock of this discovery has begun to settle, a much bigger question emerges. What other secrets might still be buried beneath the streets of Jerusalem? If one shrine has survived in such perfect condition, how many more are waiting to be uncovered? Each discovery could reveal new clues about how ancient people worshipped, lived, and reshaped their world. Who knows? This may be only the beginning of a story that could completely change how we understand the balance of faith and power in ancient Jerusalem. So what comes next? As researchers dig deeper, the spiritual practices connected to this shrine may uncover an even richer picture of religious life beneath the Temple Mount. And this discovery may be just the first chapter in a much larger story. A divine symbol that survived 2,800 years. Among the most astonishing finds was a sacred standing stone, buried deep within the forgotten shrine, where it had stood untouched for nearly 2,800 years. This is extraordinary, because many ancient holy stones were destroyed during King Hezekiah's famous religious reforms. Yet this one survived. It endured the centuries, hidden away, defying time, politics, and even royal decrees. How did it escape the king's purges? Why was it spared when others were smashed or removed? For generations, scholars and religious leaders believed Hezekiah's reforms eliminated all rival shrines. The king was said to have torn down altars, destroyed sacred stones, and forced all worship to be centralized at the Temple Mount. But this stone tells a different story. It stood tall. It was not destroyed. It remained in place, quietly challenging the idea that Hezekiah's reforms were absolute or permanent. This lone surviving stone may be the most powerful symbol yet, a reminder that beneath the official version of history, another story was still unfolding. Why was this stone left behind? What made it so different from the others that were destroyed during the king's reforms? The answer lies in what the stone truly represented. To the people of ancient Judah, standing stones weren't just rocks. They were seen as powerful symbols of God's very presence among them. If this stone survived, it may mean that even Hezekiah and his priests recognized its holiness. Perhaps they couldn't bring themselves to remove it, even as they worked to centralize worship at the temple. This hints at a deeper conflict, a struggle between official religious authority and the older, deeply rooted traditions of the people. And it seems that this conflict could never be fully erased. For generations, many believed Hezekiah's reforms were absolute, that every rival shrine was wiped out, every sacred stone destroyed. But this single survivor challenges that idea. It suggests something more complicated, that even during times of sweeping reform, some traditions quietly endured. Could there have been unspoken compromises, silent agreements, that allowed certain customs to continue in secret, even as the official system changed? This discovery forces scholars to rethink what they thought they knew about ancient religious law and practice. And it raises an unsettling question: what other traditions have been preserved in the hidden cracks of history, waiting to be uncovered? This stone is far more than an artifact. It's a symbol of resistance, a reminder that no matter how powerful reforms may seem, they can never erase everything. Local traditions survived in silence, pushed out of the spotlight but still alive, carried on beneath the surface of official rules. The fact that this stone still stands tells us just how complex religious life was in ancient Judah, and it challenges us to think more deeply about how faith, power, and tradition were constantly clashing, shaping a world far more complicated than we once believed. So, what does this mean for the bigger story of Jerusalem? It shows us that religion in ancient times was far more complicated than we thought. Hezekiah's reforms weren't just about power, they were about balance. This stone proves that some traditions were simply too strong to erase. No matter how hard a king tried, faith always found a way to survive. It forces us to rethink how power, belief, and custom worked together in ancient Jerusalem, a story we're only beginning to uncover. But here's the real question: what else is still hidden beneath the Temple Mount? Each new discovery has the power to flip our understanding of history upside down. And this journey is only just beginning. Why this discovery shook the world. When news broke about the hidden shrine under the Temple Mount, the world didn't just take notice, it was stunned. At first, it seemed like just another archaeological find, but almost immediately, religious leaders, scholars, and even politicians weighed in. This wasn't just history, it was faith, identity, and politics colliding all at once. The Temple Mount has always been one of the most contested places on Earth, and now, beneath its surface, we've uncovered shrines and artifacts tied to worship that existed long before. Jewish scholars began rethinking the history of their reforms. Muslim leaders questioned the meaning of digging beneath the dome of the rock. Christian voices wondered if this could reshape our understanding of the world Jesus walked in. But it didn't stop with religion. Politicians quickly jumped into the conversation. Who controls this history? Who decides what happens to the artifacts? In a place already divided, this discovery has only deepened the tension, raising new questions about ownership, power, and the future of one of the most sacred spots on Earth. And this is just the beginning. This discovery goes far beyond Jerusalem. For thousands of years, the Temple Mount has been a symbol of humanity's link with God. Now, hidden chambers beneath it are forcing us to rethink everything we believed about worship, tradition, and history. If this shrine truly points to ongoing worship that survived Hezekiah's reforms, it raises serious questions. How strong were these old customs? And why were they preserved when so much else was erased? The implications stretch worldwide, challenging long-held views about centralized worship, biblical history, and the line between politics and spirituality. But the biggest question is, what happens next? Should archaeologists dig deeper, risking political and religious conflict, or leave it untouched out of respect for the sacred ground? More digging could rewrite history, but it could also spark unrest. The Temple Mount has always been a flashpoint, and this discovery makes it even more delicate. And if these chambers are just the beginning, what else might still be buried under the holy city? More shrines? Sacred objects? Secrets that could change everything we know about the past? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click the next video on your screen for more incredible discoveries.